But I want to go back to the start with you, Domee. A few years ago, we won an Oscar for Bao. And then you go on to do this. Was there any sort of pressure coming on from that Oscar?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, it's funny, like after winning, I was like holding the Oscar and expecting some like magical filmmaking energy to travel from the statue into me, but nothing really happened. Yeah, I think I just try to look at each project on its own and just try to do the best I can with that story. And the goal is never to like win an award. That's like the cherry on top of the sundae. But I always like joke like, oh, like if I ever go to like an exec meeting or like a notes session for the movie, I should just bring my Oscar and put it on the table as like a power move and be like, okay, give me the notes. I haven't done that yet. But.
She has not done that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the movie is the ending. It's so surprising, so unexpected how this whole thing turns into one big like superhero kaiju fight. Was this part of the plan from the get-go, or was this something you guys sprung up during the production process?
A version of it was in there from the get-go. Like not this version, but there was always you always had this desire to have this kind of very mundane's not the right word, but kind of very normal mother-daughter argument set against this like massive monster scale. Like
the idea was like taking out that mother-teen-daughter fight in the living room and just like making it as big as possible.
Yeah.
Making it the most epic mother-daughter fight ever.
Because especially if you've been bottling up that kind of argument for that long, you know what I mean? Where you're like, I've never really fought with my mom. We've never really gone at it. Like, it's what it feels like. It's like when you finally just release all of that, like pent up, like anger and frustration and sadness. It's like, you feel like it's like a monster. You feel like, you know, two emotional monsters. But I think that was always in there. But all the specificity of kind of the where and the how did we get there and what exactly goes down in that moment.
That came later.
That came. It was a long process to get there.
Was there any pushback about the humor? Because it is pretty PG-13 at times to talk about stripper music, you know, turning into women overnight.
Yeah.
Lindsey, how hard was that to sort of navigate with the executives?
I think at some point, I think maybe our philosophy had not, it was like to bombard them with so much that maybe they would be overwhelmed and be like, and forget that some of these would stay in the movie long enough.
Distract them.
Yeah, distract them with so much stuff that they're like, well, you can't say that. We have to pull that out. No, I think there's certainly a couple moments in there that I'm like, I'm surprised that we didn't get pushback. I was like, I was kind of half expecting it the whole time, like a couple of those just quick throwaway lines and funny lines. And they didn't. I mean, I think for the most part, they knew the movie they were getting. They knew the filmmaker they were getting. They knew, and we were kind of unapologetic from the very first screening. So it kind of gave them the opportunity to say, "Uh-oh, this is not the movie we want to make," and they didn't say that. So.
And we could defend those decisions too. Like it wasn't just like it's not because we're just throwing the word stripper around willy-nilly. Like all of that was connected to the theme of the movie, which is like girl adolescence and puberty and
generational, like different perspectives of like my parents think this, but what's the problem with that? That's no big deal. Like,
and if we wanted to tell an authentic story, we had to. We had to include those elements in there.
What about that scary horror dream sequence that May has?
Yeah.
Because when I first saw that, I was like, oh my God, is this like a David Lynch animated movie? Because it is pretty
I'm
scary.
So yes, I'm so glad you mentioned David Lynch. It's totally an inspiration for that part. Yeah, I mean, it was even scarier. There was an even scarier version that we cut back from.
We hadn't seen it on the big screen because we were making it all from home. And it was like before we were going to an audience preview. So it was gonna be the first time anybody else was gonna see it and we were gonna get notes. And so we finally, it was like in April or May of last year. And so it was like just enough. We were wearing all masked up and like 3 of us were allowed to go into the building to actually watch it with the editor, to see it on the big screen, to see if it was before we took it to the audience. And we all sat there and watched it. And like, we finished the sequence and like, we kind of all went like, dude, that's really scary. Like, I think we didn't have any sense. It was like how loud, like the sound and how big it was. And so we kind of were like, all right, let's kind of take some of the time out of it because we were in it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and so the version you guys saw is like even more. It's like a scaled back version.
Yeah,
of what
that's the
it
tame
used to be.
version.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh
But
my God.
it like I like it because it's like it's kind of weird too, and like it elicited a lot of laughter from the audience. Like when you first like the first image of Devin flopping around, it's kind of
The
funny.
fish,
Yeah. And my intention behind the sequence is like it's the night when puberty arrives. So what does puberty look like as a dream?
Yeah.
And it is very Lynchian. It's kind of nightmarish, but also kind of funny and sensual and weird at the same time. And we just like we screened it and we were able to keep it in the movie. So I was like, yes, love it.
What would you guys say was the hardest sequence to get correct from a technical standpoint?
Oh, technical standpoint.
From a technical standpoint, well, the third act, I think there's obviously huge elements of the third act that are just in terms of scope and scale. I think obviously
So big.
it's such a big moment and we wanted it to feel big. I mean, we didn't want to kind of make it be like, okay, you only see these little moments. I mean, even just being in a Four Town concert and the sheer number of crowds in there. And I don't know, I mean, spoilers, I don't know what spoilers are, what they're not, but the scale of the panda was
Difficult,
significantly difficult. Yeah.
And like seeing her hair like roiling as well. It just and the scale of the concert and how every member of the crowd has to react a certain way. It's just a very complex, like technically complicated chunk of the movie. Like and then also like adding like stylized anime elements to the battle scene sequence as well. I feel like every department was just firing on all cylinders.
And even getting the music to work in there, like obviously that kind of the way we bring kind of two elements of the movie together musically. We were like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Maybe it'll work. I mean, but who knew? And then Ludwig Göransson, the magician, was like, I'm going to make this work.
He made the ultimate remix.
Yeah.
Yeah.